Hey, imagine that to use Wi-Fi you first need permission from a rabbi, that your phone is not allowed to have a camera, and your kettle needs a certificate to boil water on Saturday. This is not dystopia. This is everyday reality for hundreds of thousands of ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel, a community that did not reject modernity, but tamed it, on its own terms. Today, I'll show you a world where the phone has to be kosher. The router has a spiritual seal of approval. The Sabbath timer sets the rhythm of salvation, and the guy who fixes your computer might also be your spiritual advisor. This is an episode about devices with a soul, about washing machines that don't sin, and about how Halakha has written its own operating system for an entire digital reality. Let's begin another episode. The digital world was supposed to set us free. One click for everything: knowledge, freedom, connection. But in one of the most technologically advanced countries in the world, Israel, there are districts where every click is a potential sin, and every device needs a blessing. Welcome to the world of kosher technology, where a smartphone is not allowed to have internet access, and a kettle cannot boil on Shabbat without rabbinic permission. Where not every microwave passes moral quality control, and the operating system on your laptop can be less important than the operating system of your soul. In ultra-Orthodox communities, the Haredi, technology is not just a tool. It is a battlefield, a front line between the sacred and the secular, and only the person who subjects a device to holiness is allowed to keep it. The rest? That's not equipment. That's temptation. The kosher electronics market in Israel is worth tens of millions of shekels. From certified phones and rabbinically approved internet filters to home appliances with Sabbath mode. Every cable, every function, every socket has to comply with Halakha. To outsiders, it looks absurd. But for the residents of Bnei Brak, Elad, or Mea Shearim, it's the logic of spiritual survival. Too much light destroys the night, and a screen can burn the soul. And so a new industry is born, a new kind of engineering, a new vocabulary. Technology aligned with Torah. Because it's not about not having an iPhone. It's about having it in a version that doesn't drag you to hell. This will be the story of routers with seals of approval, kettles with a soul, apps signed off by rabbis, and of how the 21st century had to learn to kneel in order not to fall into sin. In a world where every click can lead to spiritual collapse, a smartphone is not a gadget. It's a moral challenge. And if it's going to be used by someone who wants to stay pure, it has to be purified, symbolically and literally. In the ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods of Israel, it's not enough to have a phone. You have to have a kosher phone, a telephone kasher, certified by rabbis, physically modified and placed on official lists of permitted devices. Kosher phones are devices that have no internet access, no MMS, no apps, no camera, no voice or video recording. They allow only voice calls and text messages, sometimes only voice. These models are approved by a communications committee that regularly publishes white lists of accepted handsets. Retailers are required to stick to those lists and not sell devices outside them. Example, the LG B470, one of the most popular models among Haredi. No color display, no games, no browser, but a battery that lasts 10 days and a special button for rabbinic spiritual help. Yes, you can call a spiritual hotline with a single press. This market runs at full speed. Every year, several 100,000 kosher devices are sold. Their price? Sometimes higher than a modern smartphone, even though the technology is decades behind. Why? Because you're not just buying hardware. You're buying a blessing. Some phones even have kosher embossed directly on the casing, so everyone can see the owner is not hiding anything. It's not just a device. It's a declaration of loyalty to the system. But there are also in-between models, devices that look like smartphones but with most functions disabled. They're called kosher smartphones, and they are a source of constant controversy. Some rabbis approve them. Others condemn them as a gateway for evil. Owning a non-kosher phone can lead to social punishment, a child expelled from school, a refused match in the arranged marriage system, public shaming. There are cases where entire families had to move to another neighborhood because a son was caught using YouTube. Rabbis organize large public events they call repairing the connection. Smartphones are burned, leaflets handed out, and attendees can trade in their devices for kosher models. It's like a spiritual mikveh for technology. In some towns, like Elad, Modi, and Illit, local religious radio stations even announce the names of those returning to purity, people who gave up unapproved phones. There are also warning lists of people who still remain in technological sin. In the UK or US, you won't find anything quite like this on a community-wide scale. Even the most conservative religious groups rarely have their own certified devices or formal enforcement mechanisms that reach deep into everyday tech. Kosher telephony is something unique. It's part of the sociology of a religious system facing the pressure of modernity. This is not just a phone. It's a statement that you are one of us, that you choose purity over convenience, that every call you make is meant to be a blessed conversation, and if not, it means you're hiding something. And in the world of kosher electronics, hiding is the first step towards a fall. We like to talk about freedom of access in the modern world, but there are places where internet access is not a right. It's a privilege, granted with a blessing. Every website must be approved. Every click has to be cleansed of sin. Haredi use what they call kosher internet, a heavily filtered network with strict content censorship, blocked apps, and controlled access. Every data packet has to comply with halakha, and every browser is certified. The most popular filtering system is net-free, developed by ultra-Orthodox engineers under rabbinic supervision. Every HTTP request passes through a content moderation center, a team of people who inspect pages and images. If an image shows a woman's face, it is blurred or removed. If a site contains improper liberal content, it's blocked. Platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Netflix are blocked by default. Access to Google exists, but only within a list of allowed topics. That list is updated weekly. The blacklist is updated daily. Every connection requires installing a special SSL certificate issued by the religious provider. Without it, the internet simply doesn't work, even if the router is physically connected. It's a closed system, a spiritual intranet. Example, Avraham, a computer shop owner in Beit Shemesh, installs routers with filters. The installation takes an hour, he says. The spiritual protection lasts forever. Customers choose a filtering level. Minimal, strong, spiritually safe. The most popular one, the one that blocks almost everything. Children learn about digital dangers at school. The browser is presented as a hole in the wall of purity. In some homes, screens are covered with physical plastic filters that distort the picture, so you can't see too much. Adult men who need the internet for work obtain a heter rabbani, a rabbinic permit for using the internet on the condition that specific blocking software is installed. Interestingly, women rarely get such permissions. Too risky, say the authorities. Office workers, teachers, clerks often have to show that their phones and laptops run only kosher internet. Some communities even run monthly checks of digital spiritual hygiene. Sounds like cybersecurity? That's exactly what it is, only for the soul. Access passwords are assigned centrally. Usage logs are stored by spiritual administrators. Yes, there are people whose full-time job is checking who clicked what and when. Their goal is not punishment. Their goal is rescue. In the UK or US, you have parental control apps, web filters, and digital safety education. But you don't have a full religious technology system at the community level. No certificates for access to Google. No going to see your rabbi because you clicked Wikipedia History of Art. This is not just a firewall. It is a wall, built not by the state, but by faith, by the need for purity, by fear of a world that offers too much, too quickly, in too many colors. In the world of kosher electronics, the internet is not supposed to connect. It's supposed to protect, to remind you that every click is a choice, a spiritual one, and a spiritual mistake is more than just an error. It's a risk to your whole family. Washing machines, fridges, microwaves, kettles, everyday innocent devices. but in an Orthodox Jewish home they are items requiring authorization, rabbinic and halachic, because wherever there is electricity, there is a risk of violating sanctity. In Haredi households, domestic appliances must comply with Jewish law. In practice, that means they must support Shabbat mode, a way of operating that avoids forbidden actions on the Sabbath. Halakha forbids, among other things, lighting a fire and closing electrical circuits on Shabbat. That makes a standard microwave, electric kettle, or fridge halakhically problematic. So, manufacturers like GE, Whirlpool, or Bosch design special models for religious markets, and these models can be certified by rabbinic authorities. Example, the GE Sabbath-compliant fridge. It automatically disables light, sounds, fans, and switches temperature sensors into a passive mode so they don't react to the door opening. Silent, invisible, holy. Kosher ovens with Sabbath mode work with delayed actions. Once activated, the user cannot directly change the temperature. If you put food in, you don't actively trigger a new circuit, so you don't break the law. Heat without sin. In 2014, the Israeli company Plasan introduced a kosher kettle, the Shemesh Pro, which keeps water at 65 degrees Celsius for 25 hours without active user intervention. Its slogan, water that knows its place. Communities have their own appliance certification specialists. One of the most famous certificates is issued by Zomet, the Center for Kosher Technology in Alon Shvut. There, religious engineers design device logic so that hardware satisfies both technical and spiritual norms. Kosher home tech is not just about Shabbat. It also handles rules separating dairy and meat. 2 kettles, 2 sets of pots, 2 mixers, ideally 2 sinks. Everything marked with colors or stickers. Apartments in Haredi neighborhoods are built with extra sockets, special power strips with built-in timers, motion sensors that can be turned off before Shabbat, lights wired to Sabbath timers. A home not only clean, but pre-programmed for holiness. Rabbis visit homes to approve the configuration of devices. Consultants in domestic halakha help families prepare their living space to comply with the commandments. In the UK or US, you have safety standards and energy labels, but you rarely see a full spiritual functional certification system for home appliances. In Israel, kosher home tech is a living market with its own catalogs, products, and marketing slogans like "Buy wisely," "Buy in line with the Torah." Kosher electronics are not just about the phone, it's about the entire house. A house that knows when it must be silent, when it's not allowed to turn on, when it must not be too convenient. Because on Shabbat, comfort itself can become a sin. And if sin is not an option, the freezer has to be pure, the stove aware, and the washing machine must not hear that today is Friday. In the ordinary world, time is a number. In the Haredi world, it's the rhythm of redemption. That's why every clock, every minute, every automatic start has to know Torah. On Shabbat, you don't switch on the light, but it turns on, by itself, if you programmed holiness ahead of time. The heart of many kosher homes is the Shabbat clock, the Sha'on Shabbat, a timer that turns devices on and off according to halakha power, lights, ovens, boilers, air conditioning, everything synced with sacred time. It can be mechanical or digital, but it must follow some rules. It cannot force a forbidden action, cannot be adjusted during Shabbat, and must be programmed in advance. Halakha is clear, intention must be pure, and time must be foreseen. Example: the Levi family programs their timer so that the kitchen light turns off at 9 p.m. and back on at 6 a.m. They can get up for morning prayers without breaking any rules. The children know, if the light doesn't work, Shabbat is still here. More advanced systems are Shabbat smart controllers integrated into smart home infrastructure. Companies like Zomet or Halachic Tech create special controllers that allow spiritually safe scheduling of devices. Configuration, of course, only before sunset. Timers are installed in elevators as well. The Shabbat elevator, Ma'alit Shabbat, stops automatically on every floor so nobody has to push any buttons. It becomes a holy machine. You'll find them in Jerusalem, Bnei Brak, hotels by the Dead Sea, and in some buildings in New York. Ultra-Orthodox communities run education in holy engineering of time. Children learn how to use Shabbat timers at school. Pre-marriage courses include a module on managing the home according to halakhic time. Rabbis publish calendars with precise times for candle lighting, the beginning and end of Shabbat, holy days, fasts. Time does not belong to your watch. Time belongs to the commandment. In 2021, an Israeli startup launched a Shabbat clock with a rabbi's voice. The device announces the approach of candle lighting, the end of holy time and prayer slots. Marketing slogan: don't just set the time, set your soul. In the UK or US, you can buy generic timers and smart home systems, but their use is not supervised by religious authorities. In Israel, a timer can be kosher or problematic. It's not a detail, it's a declaration. In a world where every minute has meaning, technology becomes the guardian of time. Not the time that measures your life, but the time that leads towards salvation. The Shabbat clock doesn't just turn the light on, it turns holiness on. It whispers, nothing happens by accident. Not even that your oven turned itself off. It's not enough to own kosher devices. They have to be monitored, checked, repaired when something stops working in the spirit. Because in the Haredi world, technology can break, but it can also go astray. And then you need more than a technician. You need a spiritual diagnostician. In many ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, there are service points certified by rabbinates and organizations like Mashon Zomet or Vaad Hatzniut, specializing in electronic inspections. Officially, repair, reset, configuration. Unofficially, purification. Customers bring laptops, tablets, modems, TVs, and phones. Each device is checked. Software, apps, browsing history. If something looks suspicious, the owner is sent to a spiritual counselor. Example: Yosef, 17, installs video editing software on his laptop to help his father prepare training materials for cashiers. But the Adobe package includes a web component. The computer is brought in for inspection. Yosef has to attend a course called Return to the Right Click. Committees for spiritual repairs work in parallel with service centers. A family reports a problem. Our son is acting strange, and the technician checks the device. Sometimes parts are removed. Sometimes the device is symbolically destroyed. Communities organize device cleaning days when residents can have their equipment inspected. Those that pass get a sticker, spiritually trusted. Think of it as religious ISO certification. There are also monitoring apps like Native, Ryman, GetterNet that log every action on a smartphone and send daily reports to a designated spiritual overseer, usually a rabbi, mentor, husband, or father. Women seldom have devices without full supervision. Their access to apps, browsers, or even messaging is often limited. In some communities, couples sign technology agreements, stating who may use which devices and to what extent. A technical fault often becomes an excuse for an audit. A child broke a charger. The repairman asks, what exactly was the kid doing at the USB port? If the answer doesn't sound convincing, a report is filed. The system does not trust coincidences. Schools, religious institutes, and kollels regularly inspect the devices used by staff. Anyone with uncertified equipment may be suspended. Official explanation: the device is not compatible with the spiritual system of the institution. In Western school systems, IT handles tech policy, not the clergy among the Haredim. It's often the other way around. There are no accidental clicks here. Every device carries responsibility. Every USB port can be a gate to sin, and anyone who fails to close that gate gets summoned. Not just for repair, for a conversation. Kosher electronics are not a factory setting. They're a state of the soul, checked, approved, and monitored. So, to sum it all up, all over the world, technology evolves faster than the law. In Israel, it sometimes feels like rabbinic rulings try to evolve even faster than the tech. Kosher electronics are not just a way to stay offline. They're a strategy for living inside a fully wired, fully tempting world. Without abandoning a spiritual system that predates electricity, they raise a bigger question. Is a technology possible that doesn't separate us from God, but brings us closer? Can a computer be ritually pure? Or have we already reached the point where it's not humans controlling technology, but technology quietly defining who we are? If this episode surprised you, hit like. If you learned something new, hit subscribe. And if you want more people to see what the 21st century looks like in Hebrew, share this video because the world of kosher technology is not a joke. It's reality. And it's the kind of reality you can't just Google.